My daughter asked my ex-wife's new husband to give her away at the wedding. I paid for everything, but I was asked to sit in the back row. Hello, Reddit I plus here. I used to believe that if you loved hard enough, gave enough, and showed up every day, people, especially your own flesh and blood, would never forget it. But life has a twisted way of revealing what people really think of you, often when it hurts the most. My name is Daniel Graves, 48, and this is a story about love, betrayal, and the price of dignity. 24 years ago, I married the woman I thought I'd grow old with, Allison. She was beautiful, fiercely ambitious, and had this infectious laugh that made everyone around her feel like life was lighter. We had our daughter, Emily, 2 years in, and for a while, it felt like we had the dream life. But somewhere along the line, things shifted. Allison became restless. She wanted more freedom, more success, more life, as she put it. Meanwhile, I worked long hours as a project manager at a mid-tier construction firm to keep us afloat. I missed birthdays. I skipped vacations. I poured my time and effort into building a stable home. And when Allison got a promotion at her marketing firm, it was like she no longer recognized the life we'd built together. She wanted a divorce. She told me one night over dinner, calm, clinical, like she'd rehearsed it. I'm not happy, Daniel. I haven't been for a while. I need to rediscover who I am. No affair, no shouting match, just quiet resignation. I begged her to consider counseling, but she was already mentally out the door. Within 6 months, the papers were signed. She kept the house. I took a small apartment 2 towns over. We agreed on joint custody, but it never felt joint. Emily was only 12 at the time, and Allison gradually shaped her world around her new life. I became the every other weekend dad. I showed up with groceries, helped with homework, never missed a school event, and always paid my share of everything. And sometimes hers too. I did all this while Allison paraded a new man into Emily's life just a year after the divorce. Greg Whitman, a finance executive, clean-cut, wealthy, charming in a shallow kind of way. He had a boat, took them on ski trips, and bought Emily expensive gifts. She started calling him G when she was 14. It stung, but I swallowed it. I tried to connect with her in other ways, teaching her how to drive, supporting her dream to study environmental science, and financing her entire college tuition without student loans. Allison and Greg never offered to pay a dime. I never brought that up. I just wanted Emily to feel secure. Over the years, I watched my role quietly diminish. I wasn't invited to father-daughter school events anymore because Greg already RSVP'd. I missed her graduation dinner because it was just easier to have one at Greg's place. Still, I told myself, this is just a phase. She's young. She'll come around. The wedding blow. Then came the wedding. Emily got engaged at 25 to a nice enough guy, Caleb. She FaceTimed me with the news, excited, glowing, and I congratulated her through teary eyes. Of course I'll help with the wedding, I said, not even waiting for her to ask. Over the next several months, I paid for the venue deposit, her dress, catering, even some of the floral arrangements. I told her it was my honor, that I wanted her to have everything perfect. She thanked me, briefly, but she never once asked me about walking her down the aisle. Then the invitation arrived. It was formal, cream cardstock with gold trim. On the back, under the ceremonial details, it read, "Giving the bride away, Mr. Gregory Whitman." Not only that, my name wasn't listed anywhere. I was told via a casual follow-up call that I'd be seated in the back row to keep the flow smooth between both families. I asked, "Why is Greg giving you away?" There was silence. Then Emily said, "He's been there, Dad. Like, really present. And I don't want to hurt Mom's feelings by making it a big deal between you two." Really present? I reminded her, softly, firmly, about every late-night call during her exams, the bills I paid, the time I drove through a snowstorm to get her home from college because her car broke down. I told her how I never missed a birthday, even if I had to celebrate it alone with her a day early. She sighed. "Dad, can't you just be okay with it? This isn't about you. It's my day." I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I simply said, "Thank you for letting me know." And on the morning of her wedding, I didn't show up. I received a few calls that day, some angry, some confused. Allison texted me, "Real mature, Daniel." Greg didn't say anything, naturally, but it was Emily's voicemail that stayed with me. "Dad, I noticed you weren't there. I hope you're okay. I thought you'd understand. Anyway, I love you." I never called back. 3 months passed. I threw myself into work, took up fishing again, read books I'd put off for decades. For the first time in years, I had no one to worry about but myself. Then, one afternoon in December, Emily showed up at my door. She looked different, older, unsure. Her makeup was smudged, her voice smaller than I remembered. "Dad, I'm sorry." I let her in. She sat on the same couch she used to fall asleep on as a kid while watching cartoons. She apologized for choosing Greg, for pushing me aside, for letting Allison manipulate the narrative for so many years. I listened. Every word felt like it was years too late. I thought he was doing it out of love, she said. But when I told him I wanted to get a second degree, he told me to take out loans. When Caleb and I had a fight, he told me to stop being emotional. He never came like you used to. She paused, eyes welling up. You always came, Dad. I nodded. I did. Then she said it. I want to fix this. I miss you. And I looked at her. Really looked at her. And saw the reflection of every scar I carried quietly for years. The missed holidays. The nights I wept in silence. The thankless love I gave when I had nothing left to give. So I stood up, walked to the door, and said the hardest words I've ever said. I loved you more than anything, Emily. But love doesn't survive where there's no respect. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine. Please, stay away. She didn't cry. Not then. She just stood frozen in the doorway, her hands trembling as if she never imagined I could ever say no to her. But I did, because sometimes the strongest thing a man can do is walk away from the people who only come back when their new pedestal crumbles. And as I closed the door behind her, for the first time in my life, I felt peace. Not triumph, not revenge, just peace. 3 weeks after Emily left my doorstep in tears, the silence settled in like an old friend. I didn't expect to hear from her again, not anytime soon. She'd said her piece. I'd said mine. The story should have ended there, but regret has a way of spreading like smoke. Slow, suffocating, impossible to ignore. It was a quiet Sunday morning. I had a mug of black coffee in one hand and a novel in the other when I heard the knock on my door. 3 soft taps. I already knew. I opened it to find both of them, Emily and Allison, standing on my porch like ghosts from a chapter I had already closed. Allison wore a black coat, her hair tied back, her face more tired than I remembered. Emily looked down at the floor, her hands gripping her sleeve. Daniel, Allison said, her voice more careful than kind. Can we talk? I stared at them for a long second, then stepped aside. They sat awkwardly on the couch. The same one where Allison once nursed Emily as a baby. The same one where I had cried alone on the night they both moved out. Funny how furniture remembers everything. The apology no one asked for. I came here, Allison began, because I owe you an apology. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. I didn't say a word. I know what I did. Years ago, how I made Emily believe you weren't really there for her. I see it now. Greg wasn't a better man. He was just convenient. And I let him take a place in her life that should have never been his to claim. I raised an eyebrow. You let him? She swallowed hard. I encouraged it. Emily flinched beside her. Allison continued. I resented you after the divorce. I told myself you were the reason I was unhappy, and I poisoned Emily with my bitterness. I wanted her to lean toward Greg because it made me feel like I'd won something. There it was, the confession, raw, too little, too late. I saw you at the wedding, Allison said, her voice cracking. Outside the venue. You sat in your truck for a while, didn't you? I said nothing. Just sipped my coffee. She looked down. I should have come to you then, but I was too proud. And now, after watching Greg walk away from Emily emotionally, she finally understands who really showed up all those years. Emily's voice finally broke the silence. Dad, I'm sorry I let Mom's voice become my own. I thought I was doing the right thing, until I realized the only man who never asked for anything in return was the one I pushed to the back row. I looked at her, eyes wet, face full of sincerity. She meant every word, but I was already too far gone. Closure, not reconciliation. I sighed and set the coffee down. You know what the hardest part was? I said, voice steady. It wasn't being left out of the wedding. It wasn't the money, or even the humiliation. It was realizing that everything I gave, every sacrifice, every dollar, every missed opportunity in my own life, meant so little that I became an afterthought. Allison wiped her eyes. Daniel, I know we can't undo it, but maybe… No, I cut in gently. We can't, and we shouldn't pretend otherwise. I turned to Emily. I will always love you. That will never change. But I've learned to stop setting myself on fire, just to keep other people warm. Her lips quivered. Can we rebuild? I walked toward the front door and opened it slowly. You built something else. You called someone else Dad. You let someone else walk you into a new life while I stood outside. I think it's best I stay out there. Allison stood. Please, Daniel. You're a good man. I see that now. And I hate that I made you feel disposable. I wasn't disposable, Allison. You just didn't think I'd walk away. They both stood at the threshold again, this time hoping for a different ending, but I had already written the final chapter. Take care of yourselves, I said, and I closed the door. Not with anger, not with revenge, but with peace. Because sometimes walking away isn't giving up. It's choosing yourself for the first time in a very long time.